Hello, everybody, and welcome on into One Soccer today, right here on One Soccer's YouTube channel. Andy Petrillo, Jordan Wilson, Gareth Wheeler with you. This entire show will be dedicated to the report that has come out. Gentlemen, this is the independent investigation we have been waiting for ever since it was announced that Canada Soccer would do this after the drone scandal at the Paris Olympics involving the women. Bev Priestman has been suspended a year by FIFA. We know this. Two of her assistant coaches as well who were involved in the drone scandal in Paris. They were immediately sent home. And now we have some further information now that this investigative report has come out. We're going to dive into some of the details here. But firstly, I guess I'll just start with you, Wheels, in your overall impression of what was mentioned in that report and Canada Soccer's response to it.
Well, if I'm going to be quite blunt about this, and why not, it was a little bit of a nothing burger for me today. This report really wasn't, the purpose of it wasn't to go through any potential systematic history of drone spying and cheating across Canada Soccer. I think it was about moving things forward for the Canadian Soccer Association, providing just reason to say goodbye on a permanent basis to Bev Priestman and the two other staff members. File that away in the department of what took so long. Like, seriously, because they were just waiting for this report in order to allow that to happen in the way that Canada Soccer wanted to play out. Also kind of separating the new regime from the old grievances, where the findings of this report basically said that the people that have now come in to take over control of Canada Soccer were not implicated in any way, shape, or form. So through this, really, a couple things are happening here. Bev Priestman and two staff members are gone. John Herdman and anyone else within Canada Soccer who have muddied the waters to a certain degree in terms of their influence, they will not be prosecuted in a public way. All of this will be done behind the curtain. I'm not sure if that will sit well with others. Meanwhile, I suspect that there'll be more reports that come out based upon people telling stories of spying or what actually happened behind the scenes over the last 8-9 years, as this was the one flaw of this report, is that individuals who spoke and provided evidence, their identities were not protected. Those identities were going to be made public in the report. They were redacted in the report that was released publicly. But there's a lot of people in the Canadian soccer ecosystem. It's a very small one. Us three know about this. They don't want their name anywhere close to this, but they continue to have something to say. That's why we will continue to see reports like the one in the Globe and Mail last week, CBC Radio Canada, or CBC Canada, and the one just a few days ago, that are much more scathing and provide seemingly much more details about some of what went behind the scenes. So I just don't think that this report, Andy, was for the soccer or the sporting public in this country. I think it's more about moving forward more so than anything else.
And I do agree with you. I think that's Peter Grusso, the president, and General Secretary Kevin Blue made it perfectly clear. And I mean, and rightfully so. We were not here when these things were happening. So we want to move forward. We want to definitely make that distinction. They're not wrong in doing that. But then to your point, stories will continue to come up. PR will continue to be needed because a lot of these people didn't want to put their name to paper and have perhaps some repercussions come back. That's been said numerous times in these articles that you're referring to as well. So we'll probably continue to hear certain types of stories that are, yes, drone related, culture related, because of course the big one was somebody going and reporting. Allegedly, it was, Jason DeVos about being forced to use a drone. That went nowhere. So that's not really good when you have a leader that's not helping out in that case. Of course, this is all stuff that's been alleged. So investigations will probably continue just based on, sources speaking under anonymity. But, this one, yeah, I guess, for Wheels, it didn't blow his socks off. Jordan, did it do anything to you?
My socks have never been tighter to these crusty toes. Let's just start there. Look, you both know me very well. This is my favorite part of the industry, to talk about the scandal, everything that's far away from footy. This is sign me up, two hands in the air. This is what I love. Wheels, my brother is so right. This is very underwhelming. We want to get to a point where you can put this behind you, but obviously there are people that have to go in closets and dig a few things out. I will say, if I'm in a position as well, and this small, Wheels are so right with this, in a small Canadian soccer world, I don't know if I'm putting my name forward. But what we're gonna hear for the next 6 months, a year, whatever, it's gonna just trickle down of people saying stuff about this. And I say this every time there's a scandal or everything that comes out. I want to get back to the footy. Granted, you have to go through these situations, and it can't always be peaches and roses. But hopefully, this is a step in the right direction, and we can get on.
It's a tough one for everyone involved. I sympathize with the players because they don't want anything to do with this. They don't want their past accomplishments be put under the microscope like there have been. But we all operate in this Canadian soccer world where people hold things tight to them and they're willing to speak out and share their grievance. Like it's real. Like this is emotional. People are invested in this at all different levels and to all different levels. And I just think that people will continue to talk, and that will make this story not go away. As much as you want to report just to say, hey, c'est la vie, we're moving forward, we're going to bring in positive change. Of course, people aren't going to drone in Canada soccer anymore. It's just how much do you want those individuals responsible for all this to really have a light shined on them in a negative way? It's not easy for me. I'm not someone that lives in the past. I like to look towards the future as well. I think that Canada soccer is doing the right thing in their positioning on this.
When it comes to the women's national team, they did sit down with some current players. They were able to confirm that the women did not view any drone footage. The players themselves did not view any drone footage in Paris. They were able to confirm, it appears in this report as well, that no drones were used at the Tokyo Olympics. Now, they put that towards, of course, the strict restrictions that were put into place because of COVID-19. But these are questions, right, that obviously fans have, that even I have, because immediately when this came out, guys, with Paris, you started to think right away, was Tokyo tainted? So this report seems to clear that there was no drone usage at the Tokyo Olympics. What did you want to say about that?
Yes, this report said that based upon people that were willing to put their name on record, because then there's newspaper articles that are written that they're using drones to like scan on St. Kitts in Nevis. The men. Yeah, but if it's happening on the men's side, was it happening on both sides? Look, this is the problem here. Therein, this report, I don't think will do anything to kind of settle that issue. People will have their assumptions based on everything else that's being reported. You're telling me you're going to drone when you're watching St. Kitts and Nevis and not doing it for a much bigger game that's down the road? Like, it just, again, this report, what it didn't address, and this is a weakness in it, it did not address whether this was a systematic failure, where the systematic failures were that allowed this to happen for so long.
And that's the biggest question.
Well, and this is
everyone wants to know.
And this is where you have to be smart as somebody who's reading a lot of these articles. You're right, because I think what it does confirm is that there was a real issue, and that they do bring it back to something that started with the men's team, and that it was something that was then carried over when that coaching staff then moved to the men's team. So, or I should say, it started with the coaching staff who was once with the women, who are now with the men. We can get to John Herdman in just a moment because he was mentioned in this as well.
Just Andy, to that point though, like this is the consensus in all of this storytelling and things that we hear as well, is that from secondhand sources, like this seems like it's been something that's been happening for quite some time. But because of this report and what played out at the Olympics, there's only been one real documented case where anyone's been caught red-handed. And that's the women's team. So let's be clear on this. A lot of these are accusations or secondhand storytelling. There's only one team that was ever caught, and that was the women's team at the Olympics.
So they were caught. However, again, going based on this investigation, they do trace it back to something that has been happening for years. That started with that coaching staff. So this is now something we're going to start to look into. But again, this is where it starts to get tricky, because you're right. There was an article that came out in Canadian Soccer Daily where a former women's national team player admitted to seeing footage. There was also that moment that you're talking about where Canada is taking on St. Kitts and Nevis, and they spy on them only to discover, I believe the quote was, "We found out that they were fishermen." And they all had a laugh about that. But again, it's just worth noting that maybe because of COVID-19 restrictions, drones were not used in Tokyo. So you see where you just kind of have to compartmentalize and differentiate. Having said that, though, Jordan, this was obviously the document that they were waiting for to then be able to legally dismiss Bev Priestman without, repercussions of unlawfully releasing someone from their position. So now they have an investigation that proves it. What do you think this means for the women's team, moving forward? Because obviously a coaching search has to start immediately. They have games coming up at the end of the month.
Yeah, you want someone to come in, right? You just want to know that your former coach, Bev Priestman, is no longer the coach, and that seeing the article that will commence, I hope that names or people or personalities were already really thought about, because for me this felt inevitable, right? You couldn't see a situation where Bev Priestman was coaching the Canadian women's national team again for another game, for another moment. Like it seemed like that was her time, right? I think now too, when you're looking at who comes in, that is just a big thing as well. The committee, like the coaching staff, this is such a vulnerable time for the women's national team. I think who comes in and the vision that you have, we saw it on the men's side. Hate to compare, but it's very applicable in terms of someone coming in with fresh ideas and to get everyone in the same group. I think with the women's side as well, of course, we want to focus on the football, but what they went through as well as players, you want someone to come in and really nurture that and take care of that. So I again, when Bev was caught up in this at Paris, I knew for sure that was it. That had to be a last game. But I think for players that have played under her, now you can maybe think, okay, whoever's coming in next, you can really sink your teeth in and they can move forward. This is really what it is. I think for me, this was the biggest part of the reveal in terms of knowing that Bev is no longer coming back, that they can move on.
Well, let's talk about Bev Priestman for a moment, okay? Because this is a coach I think we all had a lot of time for over the course of her years with Canada Soccer, who was triumphant, winning a gold medal at the Olympics, but leaves an absolute disgrace. And for me, it's not only that this droning, the spying was going on, it was the way that she dealt with it at the Olympic Games. For me, it was absolutely shameful, sitting behind the podium and trying to act like a moral superior, like you self-punished, you self-regulated yourself while you threw your staff members under the bus. That's why the avalanche of people coming out and speaking out and this story exploded the way that she did. She did not handle it as a leader. That's an indictment on her. Okay. And that's the most disappointing thing about this entire thing. The way that she handled that situation and was not a leader. And for Canada Soccer, they need to make sure that issues pertaining and surrounding Bev Priestman don't linger on in the future as well. The fact that her wife was a Canada Soccer coach, like there's too much power in one family overseeing one portion of the program. How was this allowed to continue on for as long as it did? A lot of this I think that this also reflects things on the men's side as well. When your women's team and your men's team are succeeding, oftentimes people are willing to overlook or maybe bend to meet the needs and requirements of individuals at a time. And it wasn't only Priestman, it was on the men's side too. As soon as the budget was rolled in a little bit, boom, it was everyone else's fault instead of looking in the mirror as in their responsibility of overseeing a program that functioned properly at all levels. So I'm really disappointed with her. Good riddance from where I'm sitting. And hopefully Canada Soccer can move forward and hire someone that is of the proper character to lead this program moving forward.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that? Just Jordo, I mean, I know you and I on One Nation have had conversation about who we think should be the next coach. We put out some names, but I think you're right. Is this just something like if you're a player right now and you're digesting this, do you also feel like this is a little bit of closure and it's time?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, the closure is a perfect word, right? I try to allude to that, but of course you do it succinctly with one word. It is closure. But I think it's more than just one person coming in. Things need to be looked at, and why I say like a coaching staff in terms of, because Wheels is right. When you give one person too much power, right, your ego can just bleed in. And I think that's what happened with Bev Priestman as well. We don't need to get into all the details, but for me, just moving forward, we watch all the games. Every time the women play, every time the men play, like people like me, Wheels, everyone, we're excited. We just want this team to be healthy in all levels of it, right? Like on and off the pitch. And I think whoever's coming in, whoever's hiring that person, do your due diligence to know but not also just give them the leash, but to make sure that you're educating them properly so that these situations don't happen again. Because the last thing I want to hear, or last thing that people, the purists that love footy, is about scandals and nonsense. There's just too much of it in Canadian soccer. This is our time to really take it by the horns and run with it. And I hope that we could just start doing it moving forward.
To that point as well about too much power. So part of, what Canada Soccer's response was to the investigation is that they have issued 3 mandates that they want to implement. And that is they are going to contractually mandate reporting of unethical behavior. They're also going to create a software where people can report anonymously so they can feel a safety there. So they're going to implement that. They're going to have ethics training for coaches and staff, and they're going to create a new independent audit and compliance committee. That's just a start. They said those are just the 3 actions that they're going to take immediately. So basically having a third party overseer, and then obviously having some sort of portal that they're going to create where people then feel comfortable enough to issue any types of concerns they feel, where there is an abuse of power within the federation. So let's talk a little bit, obviously, about John Herdman, because he was mentioned in this report. Now, he has said before on record that he didn't use drones at the Olympics or World Cup under his reign. But he also said that he would work with the investigation wheels. And right now in the investigation, they said that they couldn't find time to meet with him, that the schedules just didn't jive. So as of right now, he has not spoken on the record about any of this. So what do you make of his lack of involvement in the report right now?
Well, he's the big winner coming out of this report, and some people might scoff or laugh. Scheduling conflict? How does that happen? Like, I understand that, but the last thing that John wants is accusations or things thrown his way without proper evidence being brought to the table. So he says that he's willing to speak to the right people, but it seems like that will be done behind closed doors. It'll be done behind the curtain and not in a public sphere. And if you're John Herdman or anyone else associated with this program, this is exactly how you want things dealt with. You keep quiet, don't say anything at all, and try to let everything else, work out behind the scenes. Let the cards fall where they may. Again, for John, there's been a lot written and there's been a lot of accusations thrown his way because, they use drones on a regular basis. Quite clearly, we've seen them at their training sessions, but have they actually been caught at any kind of FIFA sanctioned event or any spying of that regard anyways? Like, the trail might lead to John Herdman, but if reports like this don't come out and present factual evidence to show that this is the case, then he's just sitting there and moving on with his life working for Toronto FC. So, I mean, again, there are reports that have been written in recent days pertaining to John Herdman and Jason DeVos. Those reports will continue to be written, and then it's up to his current employer to deem whether there's value in those statements or whether it's just background noise. So, he's the one that kind of is the winner. That I guess, if that's the best way to put it, guys. I'm not sure if that is the best way coming out of this report, because really it's just kind of left him alone.
Yeah, it is an interesting one because he's no longer an employee of Canada Soccer. But to your point, again, you're right. The allegations coming out. I mean, Honduras obviously alleged that there was spying. Nothing came about of that in that report that I was even referring to as well about St. Kitts and Nevis. But there's an interesting couple lines as well in this investigation, Jordan, where Canada Soccer says they do have a code of discipline, and because they are the governing body of Canadian soccer, which does also embody the 3 Canadian MLS teams, that there could be further discussions with Herdman. There could still be further involvement with Canada Soccer and John Herdman and Jason DeVos.
Yeah, so I wasn't suggesting he's out of the woods. Like, these individuals are not out of the woods.
You mean
but just
now,
pertaining to this specific report, like it's not a tire fire.
Right
now, continue to wait.
Understay.
Right now, yes.
Yeah,
and then I guess what I'll say to Wheels as well, and John, if you're listening as well, just in these situations, what's done in the dark will come to light. Like, my grandma used to say all the time, it would scare me. Because that means it's like, oh, I took the cookie from the cookie jar and I thought no one saw me. When she says it, I'm like, oh, okay, I did it. Like, if you're in a position, right, this could be 6 months, this could be a year down the road, but what's done in the dark will come to light. So it's one of those situations where right now, scot-free, but if you're guilty, you're guilty.
And I think the next step too, then, and I don't know, Wheels, if you're expecting this, like, you do wonder if it's up to them, but you do wonder if Keith Pelly or Jason Hernandez comes out from Toronto FC and has something to say about this. We know that Keith Pelly did not have the most glowing review of what happened last year with this club. Does he see this as just like another thing that gets added that they don't want to have to deal with? That's something that's in Toronto FC. May or may not, they feel that may or may not have anything to do with them, unless they themselves are doing their own investigating into him having done anything well with TFC.
You're right. They'll decide that. I'm just speaking pertaining to this report here today. Nothing new, really. Nothing changes that situation for me. They were very clear that more sanctions or more punishments could be levied based upon the Canada Soccer, ethics, breaking ethics and practice rules. So obviously things can still happen. I'm not saying that it won't, but this report really didn't deliver that. And I'm not sure that speaking to John Herdman would have done much to do that either. I'm sure he'll speak at some point, but it's not going to be for public consumption in this way or form.
What we do know is that this story is far from over. We'll probably hear some more examples in coming days. We will continue to keep our ear to the ground, report on anything, of course, that we come across. We are also hoping to speak to Kevin Blue, and that interview would be available to everyone who watches here on One Soccer, just to see what they have to say about steps moving forward, right? Because something that the two of you have definitely said off the top here, it was very clear based on comments made by Kevin Blue and Peter Grusso, they want to move forward. They were not in charge when all of this was happening. In fact, they were all very excited about the Olympics. This was going to be their real first, kind of big tournament outside of also Copa America, and boom, there you go. This ends up happening. So they want to move forward. They want to do it with the right people. Probably we'll hear some things about more changes being made behind the scenes, and we will report on anything that we come across. So there you go. The investigation, third-party investigation, has come out. Any final words? I see you took a breath there.
No, I'm just the one thing I'll say on that. I think building a better Canada Soccer is the goal here. I've been saying it for, 2 decades now, that the association hasn't been big enough, not enough resources, not enough talent in terms of number and quality of people there. Just not that there hasn't been good people there, just the structures haven't been strong enough to sustain this and take it to a level that I all think that we would like it to be at. And unfortunately, sometimes it comes about that incidents like this incite something and demand something much more sustainable moving forward. And that's the hope, is that coming out of all of this nonsense, that good ideas and good people and more resources can be put forward to this, so things like this do not happen ever again.
And to echo Wheels' sentiment, to cap it all off, I would just say as well, what I've noticed is that it's so easy to look at things and point fingers as well. Get involved. If you're someone that loves this game, that has any history, former player, coach, whatever it might be, Wheels is so right. More people, authentic individuals that love this game, that have good character, get involved.
Yeah. Well, that was something else the president, Peter Grusso, had said, that he was going to take a look at the size of just the amount of people and the skill that they have. Do they have the skill that's necessary to be a part of a board and a part of a federation to help it move forward? So this seems to be the first step of what we can assume will be many. That's Gareth Wheeler, Jordan Wilson. I'm Manny Petrillo. Thanks for tuning in to One Soccer Today, everyone. See you next time.